It is about 7:15. I will reconvene an open session, this meeting of the Waco ISD Board of Trustees. We've been in closed session under section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, and no action was taken. I'd like to remind everybody that all items discussed and voted upon this evening have been posted as required by state law. On behalf of the board, I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody who's joined us here tonight and all the folks who will be recognized in the next segment of our meeting. I say it every month, but we truly appreciate your interest in and your support of the Waco Public Schools. We couldn't do what we do without this show of support from the community, so thank you. I would also remind you that the board's purpose is to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and to make policies for the district. We are not here to make management decisions or to solve problems of individuals, as management is the sole responsibility of the superintendent and his staff. Lastly, because of the size of the crowd, if you have a cell phone or electronic device with you, if you'd make sure it was on silent or turned off, we'd greatly appreciate it. And once again, thank you for joining us for tonight's board meeting. At this time, will you please join me as we pause for a moment of silence for prayer, contemplation, reflection, or meditation. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 6, Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, we'll have our Executive Director of Communications and Family Engagement, Mr. Kyle DeBeer, introduce our special guests. Mr. DeBeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Tonight, we are pleased to have 2 seniors from University High School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please welcome Isabella Lozano and Dylan Chapman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, students. Dr. Nelson and board members, please join me in front of the dais for tonight's special recognitions. We'll begin the special recognition portion of our meeting with an introduction of our pledge leaders who are both seniors at University High School. Isabella Lozano, a senior at University High School, says her favorite subjects in school are math and science. She's also the senior class president, the fundraising co-chair for FBLA, the robotics team co-captain, and serves on the Waco Youth Council. In her spare time, if there is any spare time after all of that, she enjoys fishing and playing tennis. Isabella's teachers say that she's a wonderful representation of students at University High School and that she works hard in everything she does. When she graduates in the spring, Isabella wants to pursue a career as a biomedical engineer. Isabella's parents, Isabel and Felix Lozano, are both here tonight. Would you please stand so that we can thank you for sharing your wonderful daughter with us? Dylan Chapman is also a senior at University High School and says that his favorite subject is math. Dylan is an avid baseball player and the student council president. He's also a Key Club officer, captain of the varsity baseball team, and an intern at ESPN Radio Central Texas. Dylan's teacher says that he models the behaviors of an exceptional student athlete and campus leader. As student council president, he's constantly pushing himself to work harder. After high school, Dylan wants to pursue a career as a radio TV broadcaster. Dylan is also joined this evening by his parents, Leslie and Kyle Chapman. Would you please stand so that we can recognize you as well? We also want to say thank you to our Adopt-A-School partner, Barnes & Noble, for donating the books and gift cards that our pledge leaders are receiving this evening. The Waco Women's Lions Club has hosted a peace poster contest since 1988 that gives students between the ages of 11 and 13 the opportunity to share their artistic vision for peace. This year's theme of the poster contest was the future of peace, and we're excited to recognize the first place winner of the Waco Women's Lions Club Peace Poster Contest, South Waco fifth grader Esperanza Holloway. Ms. Sigrid Whitford, the art teacher at South Waco, is with Esperanza tonight, and we'd like to thank her as well for her dedication to her students and her support of her students in developing their artistic expression. Esperanza's parents are with us as well this evening. Would you please stand so that we can recognize you? We'd like to thank you for your support of South Waco. Over the past couple of months, I was excited to introduce to you our elementary students who earned perfect scores on the STAR tests. And tonight, I'm pleased to introduce you to a group of students who, as middle schoolers last year, earned perfect scores on their STAR assessments in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. In total, tonight we'll be recognizing 18 students who, as middle schoolers, earned a perfect score on the 2017 STAR assessment. Beginning with those students who earned perfect scores on the 6th grade math test, I'd like to introduce from the Atlas Academy, Ethan Boyd. Elena Shriram. And Trip Wendell. Also earning a perfect score on the sixth grade math test, but not able to join us this evening from the Atlas Academy, was Anthony Segura Mata. With a perfect score on the 6th grade STAR reading test, please welcome from the Atlas Academy, Ruben Pena. And now I'm pleased to introduce two Atlas students who received perfect scores on both the 6th grade STAR reading assessment and the 6th grade math assessment. Lucas Everett. And Sarah Shalapi. Moving on to the 7th grade STAR tests, I'm pleased to introduce students who received perfect scores on the STAR reading test. Lily Kaufman from the Atlas Academy. And Antiana Burton from GW Carver Middle School also received a perfect score on the reading test, but wasn't able to join us this evening. On the 7th grade STAR math test, Isa Perez received a perfect score. He attends Cesar Chavez Middle School. And Zane Arterburn from Lake Air Montessori received a perfect score. Along with Maricela Suarez from the Atlas Academy. The highest score that you can receive on the composition portion of the 7th grade STAR writing test is an 8. Two students from Cesar Chavez Middle School last year received 8s. First, Constance Slack. And Soledad Valenzuela. Evelyn Serrano, also of Cesar Chavez Middle School, earned the 8 on the composition as well as a perfect score on the multiple choice portion of the writing test. And I'm pleased to introduce Alicia Sriram of the Atlas Academy, who not only earned the score of 8 on the composition portion of the writing test, but also earned a perfect score on the 7th grade STAR math test. Gerardo Garcia, as a student at Cesar Chavez Middle School, received a perfect score on the 8th grade STAR math test. He's now a freshman at University High School. And Karen Rodriguez, then an 8th grade student at the Atlas Academy, received a perfect score on the 8th grade STAR Social Studies test. Karen isn't able to join us this evening, but she's currently a freshman at University High School. We're excited to celebrate the incredible academic success of these students, and we know that their parents and family members are a huge part of that success. So if you're a parent or family member of one of these students that we just recognized this evening, would you please stand as well? In Waco ISD, we strive to provide a quality, multifaceted education for our students. We realize that academics is one piece of the puzzle when it comes to building strong, well-rounded college and career-ready students. But it's also through athletics, fine arts, debate, career and technical education, and other programs that many of our students find not just their unique voice and talents, but truly their passion. Tonight, we're pleased to recognize the first of a group of fine arts students who recently auditioned for the Texas Music Educators Association Region 8 All-Region Band and were selected on the basis of their outstanding performance. Tonight, we're recognizing from G.W. Carver Middle School, Mario Flores, who was selected as the second chair percussionist for the All-Region Band, and Alyssa Andrews, who's the first alternate flute for the band. The Carver Band is led by Michelle Nelson. Turning to Waco High School, we're joined tonight by two students who auditioned and were selected for the Region 8 All-Region Jazz Band. First, our congratulations to Sony Cruz, who's the first chair drums for the All-Region Jazz Ensemble. And to Demetrius Allen, who's the first chair drums for the All-Region Jazz Orchestra. And in addition to that honor, I'm excited to tell you that Demetrius also made it to the area level of auditions and has taped an audition that is being considered for the All-State Jazz Band. So we certainly wish you luck, Demetrius. The Waco High School Jazz Band is led by Tyler Sage. And again, we'd like to recognize the parents of these students for sharing your students and their passions and their talents with Waco ISD. Would the parents of our musicians please stand and be recognized? It's no secret that any campus's success is heavily dependent on its principal in certain ways, and also that education is different from many career paths in that a principal isn't just called upon to be a boss, but to be a leader setting the culture of his or her campus, to lead by example with words and with actions. It's no surprise that the next individual to be recognized, Mr. Ed Love, meets all of those criteria. Mr. Love started teaching in Waco ISD in 1982 at Tennyson Middle School. He moved on to Jefferson Moore, where he was the head baseball coach and junior varsity football coach, then to Waco High School, where he taught social studies for 20 years, serving also as the head baseball coach, a defensive coordinator, and the assistant powerlifting coach. He later moved on to leadership roles at Waco High, the Wiley Opportunity Center, and G.W. Carver Middle School before returning to Waco High School, where he serves in his current role as the campus principal. He was the Waco ISD Principal of the Year in 2014-15 and continues to lead a school where Lion pride runs deep. It's for all of these reasons that the Central Texas African American Chamber of Commerce recently honored Mr. Love, or Coach Love as he's still known to many of us, as its Educator of the Year. Mr. Love, we're honored that you were chosen as a representative of Waco ISD, and we're pleased that the community sees the same commitment to our students that all of us see every day, and we're happy to recognize you this evening for that honor. It's increasingly rare to see individuals who exhibit that sort of incredible longevity working for one particular organization. We at Waco ISD are lucky this evening to recognize a group of employees who have demonstrated immense loyalty to our students and to this district by serving Waco ISD for more than 30 years. I'd like to start by recognizing those employees who, with last school year, completed 30 years of service to Waco ISD. First, Lisa Edwards, who's our counselor at Bells Hill. Jacqueline Gaines, who's our counselor at Provident Heights. Rosa Gonzalez, a pre-K aide at Provident Heights. Judy Peters, our administrative assistant in the Career and Technology Education Office. Janie Uribe, who serves as the primary literacy aide at Bells Hill. Jerry Williams is an athletic trainer at University High School. And Susan Moody is a special education teacher at Parkdale who was unable to join us this evening. We also have a group of individuals who have given 35 years of service to Waco ISD. And that group includes Glenda Bain, who's a pre-K and kindergarten teacher at Lake Air Montessori. Delaz Leonard, who's the assistant principal at the Wiley Opportunity Center. Bianca Ochoa, a third grade teacher at Hillcrest. And Debbie Sims, our principal at Provident Heights. This dedicated group of employees represents an incredible 350 years of service to the students and families of Waco ISD. Please join me in congratulating them once more. Last month, we recognized the first group of businesses and community organizations that have been honored for their contributions to Waco ISD as the Texas Association, through the Texas Association of School Boards Business Recognition Program. And this month, I'm excited to introduce you to another very dedicated group of community members and organizations who are making a difference for our students through their support every day. These organizations have supported Waco ISD through athletic sponsorships, financial support, and partnerships with Guama and Guaca by hosting summer interns for our career and technical education program, as Adopt-a-School partners by providing interns, and as sponsors for the Waco ISD Education Foundation's HEB Celebrity Cook-Off event. It truly is a broad range of support that is making a very real difference. And so I'm pleased to first introduce from Baylor Scott and White, Hospital President Glenn Robinson. Representing Educators Credit Union, CEO and President Joe Hutera. Compliance Officer Jim Smith. And Marketing Director Rachel Wilde. Rick Tullis is joining us from Capstone Mechanical. Eric Ames is representing Baylor University tonight. Yep. From CP&Y, formerly the Wallace Group, we're joined by Project Manager Daryl Vickers. Representing Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram, General Manager Ted Teague. From Bush's Chicken, owner Matt Horton. From the City of Waco, Fleet Manager Larry Day Jr. From McLennan Community College, we're joined by the Vice President of Research Effectiveness and Information Technology, Dr. Phil Rhodes. And by the Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Fred Hills. Paul Hoffman, the MCC Director of Student Development, is also with us this evening. From Providence Healthcare Ascension, Renee Gillette is the nursing educator. And from the Waco Public Library, we're joined by Jessica Emmett. I also want to recognize a small group of businesses that were included in the TASB Business Honor Roll recognitions but weren't able to join us this evening. That includes Extraco Bank, Authentic Granite and Marble, Sturta Steel, Cargill, Creative Waco, and Central Texas Ironworks. Please join me once again in thanking all of the businesses and community partners who truly make a difference for our students every day. And that concludes this evening's special recognitions. Thank you.
Sandra did it. All right. I guess we've got some guests from Baylor that we could take out of order. We want to do the audience for guests first, and then we can proceed. All right. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the audience for guests. I believe only one person signed up, Pam Cooper from AFT. Pam, you're back.
Good evening, President Atkins, board members, and Dr. Nelson. My name is Pam Cooper. I'm the current president of the Greater Waco AFT. One of our goals this year was to help provide teachers new to the district 25 books of their choice to create a classroom library. We also plan to give all the students that are part of the Pack of Hope, or some people call the Backpack Club, books for their own personal library. In partnership with First Book, we have 10,000 books to give away. Our book giveaway will be this Saturday, December the 2nd, in the gym at Brazos High Recovery Center. New teachers can come and get their books from 9 till noon. Other Waco ISD teachers may get their books from 1 to 4. All of you are invited to attend. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Israel Carrera, whom without this would not have happened. He found us a space within 24 hours when we contacted him. We would like to acknowledge and thank Mr. Raul Gomez, Mr. Lucas Wells, and his staff who cleaned and prepared the gym to make it the place it is today, and they were so kind and courteous to all of us. Also, I'd like to thank the principal, Ms. Daphne Latchison at Brazos Recovery Center, and the students of Ms. Erin Whitley, who did a lot of the work. They volunteered saying, could we do it as part of our class, and they worked for books. All this help has been a blessing for us to be able to help our community. We are blessed to have teachers who care in Waco ISD and volunteered to make this happen. I would like to say thank you to Pam Fisher, president of TSTA, and members of her organization who joined with us to make this possible. As an organization, we are here to serve our members and assist in promoting excellence in Waco ISD. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate all y'all did for helping the new teachers as well as the kids who participate in Backpack of Hope. Thank you. Unless I hear some objection, we'll take item 10A1 out of order and allow our guest from Baylor to present on the Bear Project. Is there any objection? All right, then we'll move on to item 10A1, the Bear Project Student Outcomes Report. Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. President. One of our most outstanding partnerships that we share with the Baylor University is in their School of Social Work. And I've just been so delighted by the leadership of this department and all of the young men and women who have been working so hard in our schools to try and make a difference, and just very proud of all the staff with the School of Social Work from Baylor University. So, Dr. Singletary, I'd like to invite you to make a few introductory comments, and then you can introduce your guest, and or you can come with them. I don't know the protocol. I just, Dr. Singletary, for the record, is just one of our staunchest supporters and one of the best WISD parents we have in our organization. So we appreciate all of your energy and commitment to our initiatives. Dr. Singletary?
Well, I have to be a part of a project like this because as a member of a family of 6, I'm the only one not formally connected to WISD. Yeah. So my wife's a teacher and we have 4 children in the district. Thank you, President Atkins, board members, and Superintendent Nelson, so much for this opportunity tonight, as well as the ongoing work of this project. It really is a gift to us to be able to partner with the district in this important work. And as you said, we really are committed to the district and truly value this work. Tonight, my project coordinator, Carrie Roy, is going to join me to share the more formal remarks. Carolyn Cole is our project director. The majority of her time is dedicated to serving on campuses, and she's with us here as well. We have research director funded by the Amahog Foundation for Mental Health in Texas, a new supplemental grant to support this work, and that's Dr. Lisa Madden, who's with us tonight. We have a team of our Bear staff interns who are with us tonight, and then we have several principals and staff from some of the campuses on which we're working who have joined us to show their support, so we're grateful for them joining us tonight. If I could just ask these colleagues to stand briefly so we can recognize who the Bear team is, including the school staff. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all. There's a slide here that is a district statistic that one of our students found last year showing that from a pretty small number of students, there is a pretty sizable struggle in terms of severe and persistent disruptive behaviors. And we point out this statistic just to be able to show that it really is a small number of students who have chronic disruptive behaviors, but As a result of this, and from the work of teachers and staff, we know that any disruptions, no matter how small, really do contribute to decreased learning time for all students. So we really do have to take these kinds of issues seriously. And the concentrated efforts of the BEAR project really do work to increase instruction time and educational outcomes for all students. The project as a whole has the goal of increasing academic achievement of children with the greatest social and emotional learning needs. And you see here, in addition, 6, it says fivefold. There are 6 objectives. I just can't count. 4 of which are tied to reducing specific outcomes, out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, DAEP placements, and absenteeism. And then there are 2 things that we're trying to increase: family engagement with the schools and social and emotional learning. And from our research as well as our experience on the campuses, we know that these are all interrelated and integrated, that strengthening these last 2 contribute to reducing the first 4. And this is what drives our project. We know the relationships between teachers and students, between families and their students, that these kinds of relationships really matter if we want to see behavioral changes. So we really do have a holistic approach to our work. We seek to address our care for these students, our engagement with their families, and our support for the teachers and the staff, both personally and systemically, which is a common social work practice, but it is something we take seriously in our work with the district. To provide more specific details about our work, first with a focus on the Wiley campus and then on the 3 other campuses we're serving this year, Carrie Roy will provide you with more details of the project. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to try to, there we go. I'm going to let y'all know a little bit about what we've done over the past year and then what we're also doing this year. Some of it's woven together. I'll try to tease it out when necessary. In 2016-17, you can see we served 145 students in Waco ISD. The demographics of those students closely mirrored those of the district. We provided the details about the demographics for you on the handout, if you're interested in looking at those. The students that are served by the BEAR project are referred by school personnel, administrators, teachers. Oh, maybe we're bringing you the handout right now, if that's easier. We've got it. Thank you. They're referred by anyone on the campus, so that can be administrators, teachers, or staff. After we receive a referral, our on-campus staff screens those students and matches them with the services that will best meet their needs. Our BEAR intern staffs also participate in behavior team meetings on their campuses where services and interventions are coordinated with other providers. We provide intensive, individualized services targeting chronic disruptive behaviors. Our services are culturally and linguistically sensitive, and we provide them to as many children as we can without compromising the integrity of our work. This means that sometimes the BEAR staff can spend several hours in one day with one child who is in crisis and in need of their assistance. And they are asked to provide that service because they are the people on campus who are best equipped to help resolve that crisis. Through tracking of our BEAR staff's time, one of our staff has reported about 50% of her time so far this year has been in crisis response and 50% has been in planned interventions. Our goal is to prevent behavior disruptions, but we're most often referred students who have already been displaced from the classroom. Therefore, our work starts with rapid assessment, immediate intervention, and then a focus on reducing future outbursts. We do utilize evidence-based interventions, and we provided a list of those on your handout as well. Our holistic approach tells us that getting to know the family and the home environment of the child tells us a lot about them and what their needs are. Getting to visit a family member and providing the techniques and skills that we have found to be effective to help calm down their child with that family is a vital part of our work. When we visit families in their homes, we're almost always greeted with thank yous, and we're so glad that there's someone like you from the school to come and meet with us. And these are really key moments that are building positive connections between the school and the family members and are framing the school as a resource for help and partnership. You'll notice the number of hours served by our 5 staff interns last year is closely followed by the number of hours of supervision and services provided by our trained and licensed social workers, which would be myself and Carolyn Cole, and that this is a key component to the success and high quality of our program. Click. So we've been working at the G.L. Wiley Opportunity Center. The students here at this campus have the most disruptive behaviors on their home campuses. We begin intensive individualized work with them while at Wiley, including their family as much as possible. In the short time that they are at Wiley, we target 1 or 2 behaviors of concern and work to replace them with coping mechanisms. One of our staff interns at Wiley has been focusing primarily on small group work using the School Connect curriculum, which is being used school-wide at Wiley this year. She is helping to teach social skills to them, and that we know it takes hundreds of times of practicing a new desired behavior in order for it to stick with our brains and our bodies and become a regular habit. So we start this process of Wiley at teaching the new desired behaviors, but then we are also working hard to help transfer that practice back to their home campus. And so this is the primary focus of our transition planning that we've been doing and that we started last year and are continuing to develop across the district. We're helping students to transition back to their home campuses successfully with the goal of never returning to Wiley. So we send the message that we care about you so much, we never want to see you again. We obtained a supplemental grant from the Hogg Foundation for Mental Health to provide 2 additional staff interns at Wiley, an evaluator and research assistant for our project, as well as training and supply funds. The Hogg Foundation funded us because of our unique and innovative approach. They are excited about our project and are hoping to replicate it across the state. The focus of our transition process is to identify and plan interventions for each student, and also to build teams at the home campus that can effectively reintegrate students returning from Wiley. So this slide shows a flow chart of our transition plan and process. The key elements include assessment and planning while at Wiley, the development of the home campus team, the sharing and transfer of the individualized success plan, and follow-up by our Bear staff at the home campus. An example of this is an elementary student at Wiley that we worked with this year. The student had been hitting and kicking others, throwing items in the classroom, and threatening to pull the fire alarm at their home campus. We targeted those behaviors and taught grounding and mindfulness techniques to help the student recognize when they are getting upset and use appropriate language to communicate their needs and feelings rather than lashing out behaviorally. Our Bear staff went to the home campus to train them on the techniques that were useful with this student. And then the student transitioned back to the home campus where that student's been able to stay successfully in the classroom for 6 weeks. And prior to that return, the assumption was that they would return immediately to Wiley. So we're trying to stop the revolving door of students from home campus into Wiley. And we're also providing professional development training to all staff on the campus on how to work successfully with students like this one to prevent DAP placements in the first place. Last year, our intern who was at Wiley was able to work with 18 campuses, serving 37 students with individualized plans. And of the students that we're able to track, 86% of them did not return to Wiley last year. In addition to our work at Wiley, we're also active at Brooke, West, and Carver. We continue our intensive, individualized, and small group work with students at these campuses, but we're also working hard to establish strong family-school connections. The Bear Project staff led a family dinner at one campus that brought out 113 family members in a fun and interactive bingo night. And the families commented, "This was so much fun. When is the next one?" Which is tonight. That's why some of our people aren't here. But we found that when families view the school as inviting and welcoming, it builds trust, which leads to collaboration with the school and district. The Bear Project staff at another school started a new mentoring program with a partner congregation, and this has strengthened that partnership, and it's bridging needed social capital from the community to the students. Waco ISD is a vital part of this community, and this community needs to be a vital part of Waco ISD. We find that many partners want to help, and we've been able to match available resources with specific needs. This begins with one strategic relationship at a time. The other school and district-wide intervention that we're providing is professional development. This chart shows the audience and number of people trained last year. Year to date, we have worked with about 200 people and been able to provide professional development for them. We have found professional development to be vital to our work because children's survival behaviors are often misinterpreted as willful disobedience. When a child experiences stress, they're triggered to respond in a way that they have learned to survive, which may not always seem rational to an adult. We've been educating teachers and staff about the impact of trauma on the brain, resulting behaviors that manifest in the classroom, and how to respond to those behaviors in a way that is de-escalating. We've been receiving feedback that it's going well, that they appreciate our training, and that as a result, one teacher shared with us that she realized some of her own trauma that she hadn't been dealing with, and she was able to better handle her own behaviors and work more effectively with her students in her classroom. This is a huge mind shift for how we approach behaviors in our schools. In order to be truly effective, it requires the elimination of zero tolerance policies and harsh discipline. Our crisis intervention on school campuses centers around students who enter into survival mode that's often misunderstood as defiant behavior. The responses of well-intentioned adults often escalate instead of de-escalate these situations. I'm not trying to say that we don't have any willful disobedience happening on our school campuses that need discipline and action, because we know we do. But we want to help show teachers and staff how to get to the root cause of disruptive behavior in order to keep students in the classroom. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Singletary to share about our evaluation process.
We mentioned a couple of the key numbers from the Wiley campus in terms of outcomes from year one. Most of year one is, of course, establishing our intervention. It was focused on designing as well as beginning the services. And then we were able to collect some data from what we were able to do and can show the results, or have shown some of the results of that. But a lot of it is really focused on establishing a baseline. What kind of data do we need in the district? What kinds of numbers do we need to count for the various services that we're providing? And really we have to have, we realized we had to have a strong understanding of these outputs before we could really understand the quality and meaning of those numbers or outcomes. And we have been able to see outcomes in terms of DAP recidivism. We think we're beginning to see that in terms of DAP placement. In-school and out-school suspension is a little bit more difficult to talk about the relationship between shifts in those numbers and our program, to be able to say we're making a difference there because of district policy changes related to suspensions, which are, of course, going to reduce suspensions in general. To say that we're the cause of that is, we can't make that claim. But we're continuing to refine what specifically we're seeking to measure. So this year we've added some additional measurements. The strengths and difficulties questionnaire is the example of the kind of thing that we've added. Last year we were just using district data, and we decided that having some specific questionnaires would allow us to look more specifically at some of the behaviors for the specific children we're working with, and not just overall numbers of shifts in behaviors and recidivism rates and suspension rates, those kinds of things. So this year we'll have specific data from specific children through items like these questionnaires. While we've had anecdotal data, including some of the comments that students and principals and other staff make. We want to go beyond just anecdotal stories to more sophisticated collection of the meaning of those stories. So qualitative data is a form of evaluation that can be analyzed to show outcomes. So we are having more formal interviews and focus groups to collect the qualitative data this year, and we didn't do that last year. So that will allow us to systematize the meaning of the stories, because that really does paint a picture of the value as well. And then a mention of the pre and post test for the professional development. We did quite a bit of professional development, as you noticed last year, but didn't really have instruments to look at the results of that and how that also impacts the behaviors we're trying to address. So that's a snapshot of the evaluation plan. And of course, welcome at this point questions, comments about the overall services as well as where we hope to go in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Singletary. Mr. Manning?
Yes.
And I invite Carrie to join me back for this.
Yeah, because this question is for her.
There you go. She's the one doing the hard work.
In the example you were given about the child that was throwing and acting up and everything, what rate level was that?
Third.
Third. Okay. Then my question is, or fifth grade. Okay. Well, that really. Are you gonna do y'all plan to try to keep up, trying to follow the history of this kid? Will you go ahead and follow him all the way up to graduation? I mean, it may be a monetary situation, funding situation, or whatever. But are we going to try to keep track of this young person, whoever they are? And I mean, it's possible that they may redress when they get, when the kids get in the junior high, they kind of go wacky and everything. So, yes. Excuse me, I didn't mean to offend anybody. But are there plans to try to follow some situations like that where I know you're saying we are developing a baseline. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that maybe you can follow that child up to graduation?
That would be a possibility. We would love to do that. We can only work with so many students. That's, kind of part of what we're trying to convey. We keep them kind of on our roster. This year, when we started the year, we pulled up who were the students that we had worked with the previous year, and we did especially pay attention to those sixth graders transitioning to middle school, because we know that's a tough time, and that we can preach about transitions a whole lot more, and the challenge that brings in a new environment, in a new situation. So we do kind of keep them on our radar. We have chosen not to automatically assume they're going to need our support and services every year, because we want to give them the chance to work in their own classrooms and use the skills that we have taught them, and see if they can kind of launch on their own. But they still stay kind of on our radar.
Every once in a while, they may need a refresher course.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, it's true.
We also just have to make decisions in terms of data around campus data versus individualized student data over a long haul like that. So it really is, much more difficult to track an individual student over a long time. We can do that for some of them, but I don't know that we've designed our plan to do that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But if you're going to come up to the podium, just to make sure that everybody can hear on the TV as well, could come to the microphone. No problem.
From the standpoint of the evaluation, that is not necessarily what we've designed, but there's nothing that says we could not do that. One of the downsides of that would be that children move in and out of the district. So we might have a smaller and smaller cohort to look at, but there's nothing that says we couldn't do that if we're looking at key measures. So not necessarily, but like ISS rates, OSS rates, that type of thing that we could track over time. So there certainly is that possibility.
Once again, I'm still looking at the fact this still end up maybe a couple of years a funding issue.
Honestly, I think that's just a decision we need to make in terms of us, but it's a standpoint of really just having access to the data. And it is resources on some level, it's somebody's time, but it's not, I don't see that as something that could not be done.
Okay.
I think I can say that with pretty informed after handling a lot of the data, so. if we have access to it through the district.
This is my big thing. So the data is really important, but research and personal experience shows that the longer you follow that child, the more successful that child will be. So to answer your question is, that kiddo would be on my radar, and these students were visiting that student today. And they will go back to that campus and go back to that campus and try to follow them as long as they possibly can.
As long as he's in Waco Independent School District.
And you
Right.
know what? If they're not in Waco ISD, we're going to find out where they are, and we're going to pass on information. The transition's a really big deal. Sorry, couldn't sit still on that.
Carolyn, I don't know if this is a question for you or John, but to kind of follow up, I understand the questionnaire trying to get the individualized data. Is there some sort of data sharing agreement where you can get in-school or out-of-school suspension data for the individual students that you're working with, to where you could compare the recidivism rate for those individual students as compared to the district-wide? Are you able to get that over?
Yes.
Yeah,
No, we do. Robin, yeah.
okay.
Durham's been able to help us.
We have access to the district-wide systems. I think that was a little bit of a two-part question that maybe you can correct me if I answer it wrong. We have access, but part of what you're also bringing in is having access to a control group of students that we don't work with to compare. That's what I
Well, I
took
mean, I
that
guess
to
the
mean.
control group could just be the district-wide rate, right? I mean, if we're tracking recidivism within the district, and then the recidivism rate over a period of time, like Mr. Manning was talking about, is less than what we're showing within the district, and we know there's a measurable
You
benefit,
would have that.
presumably, from the students participating in the BEAR project. Right. That's right, so they've already been placed at one point, so.
Yeah.
And and these children aren't necessarily comparable to the rest of the district, because they come in with trauma and
Right.
challenges that are the root cause of these behaviors.
Which is-
So we can certainly make the comparison between these children and the rest of the district, but we're starting at kind of an uneven ground.
All
So
right, that's a good
none of
point.
our interventions can undo all of the experiences that these children have experienced before they've come to us. So we'll always be losing ground in some ways, but our goal is to make up as much ground as possible so that these children do have the same opportunity as others in the district.
And I think that's a great, I think when, going all the way back to the TRE in 2015, when we started talking about what this would look like in terms of addressing the individual needs of those students, that was talking about, it's a very small group, and as you said, 1% of the students are accounting for 28% of the suspensions in the district, then you really can't draw a comparison there compared to the district rate. That's a good point. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, Ms. Cordaway.
Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I appreciate all that you're doing within the district. I had just a couple of questions. I was looking at some of the data, and so these are a couple of questions that I had. I think it kind of goes back to this data point of, I love that 86% of the students didn't return to DAP. Do you guys track as far as before they left, like the number of in-school, out-of-school suspensions, and then after? You do that?
Actually, we have, that as part of our baseline for Wiley.
Okay.
So Wiley
would be a
looks
good
different
control.
than the other schools because it just is its own animal. But we did look at the number of in-school and out-of-school suspensions prior and then after they left. So that is part of our baseline.
Okay.
And, I mean, preliminarily, what we've seen is about a 52, 53% change in there from beginning, from before in-school and out-of-school. They're very close to each other. In-school is like 52, out-of-school is like 53.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering is when they go back in from the transition plan, are behaviors actually really changing? Is it, I know they're not going to DAP, but are they still getting in-school suspensions as much and as frequently?
They are getting them, but it's at a much reduced rate.
Yeah,
based on
which is what I was wondering. And then, that's awesome. I know there was 37 students at Wiley who had the transition plan. So do each of those kids get a family, like a home visit, or each of them, their families being connected with, or what is, I don't.
I like how you ask your question. We would love to do a home visit. Contact is made, is often as possible, and every single time we do a transition plan, either the phone call or home visit, some sort of family contact is made, because what we've learned is it's not going to work unless the family has buy-in. So trying to do home visits, try. If can't do that, then we'll have the school visit, and that's the biggest goal of everything. So the ones that did well are the ones that we met with the families.
Okay, yeah. And so sorry, another, just random thoughts, but are you all able to resource families as well as kind of family units? Or are you just focusing on purely student outcomes, like student behavior outcomes? Or are you able to really kind of pull in resources for families as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have several wonderful resources that we have for families, one being Methodist Home Family Outreach. So we assess what family needs what, and we have this wide array, and some of our community interns have these magnificent resource notebooks that we are being able to link people to what they need. Is it MHMR? Is it this? Is it that? If we can't provide it, we don't want to leave them in the gap.
Great. Yeah, like
Fall
job
through the cracks.
skills or different things that families might need to be able to better support
Correct.
potentially their students in the
And
school.
it's not just the student. I like your question. It's about the family too.
And then, forgive my ignorance, but what's,
Okay, that'd be great. This year, we're really lucky to have 5 clinical interns. Just raise your hand if you will. And they're the folks that do more of the one-on-one type counseling with students. And then the 3 community interns are the ones that are out in the community, finding those resources, building those resources, going to the meetings, Prosper Waco, building that capital, so then they can pass that on to the clinical, and then we can do a holistic approach.
fantastic. And what's the average amount of time that a student spends at Wiley? You know, I know it's a short period of time, but I didn't know. 30 days? Okay.
Elementary is less, it's just gonna be 15 days.
15 days for elementary. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Other questions? Mr. Tico?
So I'm curious, how are you determining whether it's the work that's making the difference or just the relationship that's making a difference?
That is the preeminent social work question. I mean, that's not just true on this project, that's always the case. To what extent can we attribute positive outcomes to our work versus other variables in society? And there's no way to rule out every other factor. The best we can do is try to isolate our contribution, and that's why we want this combination of factors. So if we can really look at kind of an individual student strength and difficulty from a questionnaire and compare that to the overall experience, then we can say, okay, this is a little bit more tied. If we have multiple measures, that's one way of helping do that, rather than just a general
And for sake
statistic.
of clarity, I mean, let's say that one of us was going to spend the same amount of time with a student as one of your students did, but we didn't know what we were doing. We were just, I don't mean to point at you, Stephanie, you might. But let's just say I just go, but I'm being supportive and I'm reading and I'm establishing a relationship, like a big brother, big sister kind of program. How would you know if
So we are working with a specific group of
program's working?
students that really have chronic disruptive behaviors. So, and it really does take more than just a relationship. The relationship is key to being able to teach the interventions and for the students to be able to own the skills that he or she needs, as well as that the teachers and the campus leaders need. But the relationship itself is not enough, but the relationship paves the way for us to be able to teach some coping skills or some other skills. So the relationship is only the first part of what the student has to learn, and then how the teachers, so when the students go back, there's a team that responds to them, and we teach those teachers the same skills. So it is a combination or comprehensive approach, rather than just a relationship with a child. In every single case for the transition plans.
Okay, but I'm just thinking that with these children, a relationship is
It's a great first step and huge, absolutely.
So I'm just, from a research point of view,
Well,
I'm willing to accept your premise,
thank you.
but I'm saying yeah, I'll defer to you on that point, and it makes sense. I'm just saying it must pose quite a bit of a challenge when you're talking about establishing research that you're going to be able to say, okay, we know this works. And
Always, sure.
Random assignment is really the only way to know that. So if you had like a relationship type program, big brother, big sister, and then you randomly assign kids, but we don't do that because it's unethical. I mean, we need to make sure that our kids, if we know that, if we believe that a resource is going to be effective and is more effective, then we put all our eggs in that basket in that sense. But that's really, from a research standpoint, that's really the only way we would know. But I mean, it's a good question. Yeah.
Other questions? Mr. Manning.
Do any of the kids that you have in the program, do they have mentors?
Yes.
Need to come to the microphone. I'm sorry. I want everybody to hear it.
Some do and some don't.
Is there a difference? Do you see a difference with the ones that have them and the ones that don't have them?
Yeah, so I can speak personally with my placement at Carver. We do have mentors on our campus who are part of other agency partnerships. And so we do see a difference between those students who are getting support from myself, from the Bear Project, and other mentors on campus versus students who may only be getting that relationship building support from their teachers or their coaches only. And so for our high needs students, I meet with them plus the other partners on campus. And it's been a very effective partnership in making sure that that student knows they're supported and staying in the classroom.
So if a student is like this gentleman, student we spoke about earlier, would you strongly suggest that this person should have a mentor?
I can't speak into that particular situation. I don't know. We're all just going to come up at some point this evening.
I didn't know I need 3 people to answer the question.
That's my baby, and she's a sweet little girl in the 5th grade. So I think that she could absolutely benefit, but I think that what we notice about the demographics in Waco ISD is that a lot of the students that are coming to Wiley and need these transitions back to the home campus don't have a lot of resources outside of what Bear Project or other things are providing inside of school. So I think that like what Amber just said, is that a lot of students could benefit from this mentor program who wouldn't benefit. White, middle-class female, I think I would have benefited from a mentor growing up. But I also want to point out, back to your question, I think that something that is really important beyond the mentoring and the relationship is that everything that I do beyond the relationship with this student is evidence-based practice. And there's research that says that these practices are research and evidence-based with these populations. And so it's not, I have a relationship and I willy-nilly do these things. There has been other research that's been done with these populations to say that this is successful. So I think that I could arguably say that the interventions that we do provide are research and evidence-based practice and beyond just a relationship or a mentorship. So did I answer your question? All on the back. Oh yeah, on the back of the handout it shows all the evidence and research-based practices that we use. So. And we're collecting data on that too.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Dupuy?
Oh, turn on. Thank you, Norman. Okay, 28% of all out-of-school suspensions come from 1% of Waco ISD students. What percent of Waco ISD account for 100% of the DAP placements? I'm curious.
We can get that for you. I would anticipate.
I mean, I wouldn't think it's at
4% of WISD students are placed in DEP.
Yeah, that's
okay, so 1% account
that was
for
2015-16.
Okay, so 1% should theoretically account for about 25% of the placements, right?
No, DAP placements, yes, but the statistic was about
Okay.
out of school suspensions.
28% out of OSS came from 1% of WISD students sent to DAEP 2016, 2017.
So
What,
4%.
Whatever that statistic is, what percent of WISD students would make up 100%? All of those instances. I'm trying to figure out how meaningful the 1% representing 28%
Right.
is.
So I'm not sure if I understand your question. 4%, so 2015-16, we looked back at that data, and this was a district statistic. So our interpretation of your statistic from 2015-16 is that 4% of students were placed at DAP. That year was 668 students. So 1% would be 1/4 of that, 200 students.
25%.
25% of the 4% is 1%, right? Are we saying the same thing? So 150 students out of the 600 students.
I wouldn't wager.
150 students out of that 600 students are causing almost 1/3 of out-of-school suspensions.
Right, we picked the bottom 1%, and I guess if that
Right.
was our statistic, then that's how it ended up on this sheet, but.
Right. So it's the 150
We're painting
most.
that 1% to be really exceptional in their behavior, possibly, but the
In
truth of the
negative
matter is,
ways.
the next 3% cover the other 72% of the problem. And
Right.
so it's,
And we work with some of those students as well. We aren't working only with that 1%. That's just where we know the problem resides. So we're not isolating that 1% in our services.
gotcha, and that's what I was gonna suggest, I guess,
Was that we work with that.
Probably all 4%, well, no, just that all 4% probably need equal amounts of help.
Yes,
Well,
no, absolutely.
That's not fair either, but that statistic probably doesn't point out perhaps that the bottom 1% actually does need more help than the other 3.
No, right.
Okay. You're gathering data. We get the first report on our 5 objectives next year?
Well, we can compare. So this summer, we have 2 faculty who are working on data analysis in the summer. So one of the things we suggested was like a workshop to be able to share some results comparing baseline and 1-year data.
Okay.
So, but we'll also have some new data that will just be baseline. So, we're just looking at those second items this year. So we won't have anything to compare that to until the year after. But I think each year we can do ongoing comparison because we already have comparison compared to 2015-16 before we were involved. That's what we're making the comparisons to for DAEP placement and recidivism, where we can see the improvements.
Okay. Have there been substantial changes in policy that would affect the number of placements?
Yes,
okay.
including state laws.
So actually that leaves absenteeism is probably the only objective one that.
Well, I'm not sure how objective it is.
Oh, you're there or you're not there.
But how.
More objective than increasing
why
family
students
engagement.
aren't there, whether it's excused or unexcused absence is a factor. I mean, there are a variety of factors.
Not there.
Well, that's true.
Fix that, right? We want them there.
We do want them there. We don't know if absenteeism is a suspension or not in every case.
Now, okay, well, now if they were suspended, right, that's not, well.
So we have to be able to compare the
Well,
difference
it's still
between what kind of
absentee.
absenteeism.
I assume that just meant not showing up for school,
No,
not when
it
they were
doesn't.
suspended, okay. Okay.
Not necessarily.
Thank you, John. All right.
Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 sensitive questions. I don't mean to put you on the spot, and maybe I don't understand, but I've had several meetings with participants of the BEAR Project. Respectfully, they all seem like a wonderful group of ladies. And so my question is this a phenomenon in social work, period, that
I'm the 1%.
I mean, I see you, I see you up here like, well, where are your cousins at? Where are And then the other, so that's one question is about, it seems like to be a female dominated. I'm not, I'm sure that's great. I'm not taking a position either way. It's just something I noticed. Seems like it would be nice if you had a diversity that matched the student population, but
Absolutely.
maybe not.
No, we couldn't agree more. And last year, we had a more diverse group of student interns in terms of race and ethnicity.
I know we hired a male from your program that now works for us full time, but he's the only one I've ever seen.
No, about 10% of our students are male, and I would love for any of the men on the board to apply for our MSW program. I'll provide generous scholarships, and we have openings in the fall.
The other question I have for you, and this is all just listening to your excellent presentation, no criticism, but does the Baylor School of Social Work have any data on interns that were unsuccessful? And how do you identify, okay, young student, you were in our program for 6 months, and we think you need to go major in construction or whatever, you know?
Yes, sir. So I can't remember the adjective you used to describe the question beyond just a personal question, but last year all of our students did not make it through the whole year. So even in this project.
And that's with ours, okay.
Yes, sir. So I
haven't heard any of that. For the record, I have not heard a complaint.
Well, it wasn't about
about
their work in the project. It was other factors.
Commitment, yeah.
But we take gatekeeping for the profession very seriously, and we want to make sure that our students will not only be successful in this opportunity, but in their career. So we really do try to take a long look at what does it take for students to be successful in a career of service to vulnerable populations. So we absolutely, we aren't able to share data about our students anymore. And I know that's not what you're asking, but I do appreciate the question and don't mind being honest that we don't have a 100% success rate with graduation of our own students.
Is there an assessment with the state of Texas to be a licensed social worker? Okay, and I'd be interested to know how Baylor students perform on those assessments. Not today, but just some other time.
We have high licensure rates, some of the highest in the state.
I'm sure.
Yeah, almost 100%.
I'm sure. I'm confident of that.
Other questions, comments? Before you guys go, I just want to say, I've commented a couple of times. Obviously, John, you and Carrie have a certain level of commitment, not only because of this project, but because you are Waco ISD parents and your children are a part of the program. But I've also been impressed with folks like Carolyn, who at the convocation made a point to bring all the interns up and introduce them to the superintendent and myself, and was very committed to Waco ISD and to what we're trying to do. She showed up at some of the town hall meetings last month and really wanted to figure out what was going on and brought some of the students there. And so I know some of this is classwork, and for some of y'all, there's the component of just the program and the work, but there's also another level of dedication to this district that we appreciate. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Anything else? All right, thanks, folks.
Certainly. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you to our campus partners. It's a real gift.
All right, we'll go back up to the consent agenda, item 9. I don't think I've been asked to pull anything. Is there anything anybody wants pulled from the consent agenda? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Manning. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We're back down to item 10, update on the continuous improvement governance work. We've covered the BEAR project. Next would be the board staff use tracker. Dr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 84 of our backup information for this meeting, you will see an update on our board staff use tracker that basically compiles the hours spent preparing for Lone Star governance presentations, the monthly hours of staff attending and debriefing, and basically total hours spent divided by the hourly rate. So we just wanted to provide that information as part of our Lone Star governance commitment, and in the next month we're looking forward to an update on how we're compared to several other Lone Star governance districts.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Any questions on the use of staff time with respect to board meetings?
I know they got dollar signs beside them, but those are hours in the first 4 columns. The other one,
So,
$77.50, August 2/17th. Those are hours.
Those
Okay.
are hours.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
take
okay.
the dollar sign
Got
off.
it. And yeah, take the dollar sign off and then multiply it by 37.
Point well taken.
We have it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
now, well, that's all right. I mean, a spreadsheet formatting error. But this is only the staff time spent on Lone Star governance?
school board.
School board completely.
Board meetings.
Got you. Okay. Preparing for what we're doing now.
Yes, and that includes every staff member that does anything from the police that are here,
Right.
the preparation of the meal, every cabinet member.
Y'all's time sitting here until we adjourn and.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what.
Enthusiastically.
Puts into these board meetings.
That's right. Well,
Got it. Thanks, Rob.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Thank you, Dr. McDurham. Last report will be the update on the IR campuses. Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. President. We just want to clearly communicate to our community that since the conclusion of our community meetings, we've continued to receive feedback from community members, and we're considering all input very carefully. One of the things that we've spent we've spent hours on this, but one of the things we've been looking closer at is some of the proposals we mentioned regarding single gender schools. We're really digging deep into some of the campuses in our state that have already had that model, and particularly on the boy side, the data's not as clear as it is, but we've also seen further evidence of this community's support for our students. Individuals are raising their hands to volunteer in our schools, and a host of businesses are coming forward to provide incentives for our students. In fact, we have nearly 200 more active volunteers today than we did at the end of the school year last year. So, we're trying to create a movement, and this movement is focused on saving our community schools. And so we're just excited about the support we've received, not only from the local business community, but from partners like Baylor University and McLennan County Community College and a host of others. We've also been meeting with local nonprofit organizations to understand their areas of expertise and what opportunities we have to expand our partnerships with them to better serve our students. Members of our team continue researching best practices in school design to improve student outcomes. That includes reaching out to other urban school districts to learn about their experiences with single-gender campuses, reconfiguring grade levels, rezoning, redistricting, and a lot of tedious, meticulous work. At the board workshop earlier this month, I mentioned that the district would be applying for a transformation zone planning grant from the Texas Education Agency. I'm proud to report that our Office of Student Services, particularly our grant writing department, the application was submitted this week by Mrs. Garcia, and we expect to hear back from the agency in January. If awarded, the grant would help us continue refining the plan to transform our chronically improvement required campuses. The main thing we want to communicate is that our primary focus remains on the intensive, data-driven work necessary to move all of our WISD campuses that are IR, close to IR, or anywhere near IR, off those lists. And we believe fervently that our instructional program has been reorganized to accomplish all of our academic goals. As part of that, I'm focused on the implementation of our district-wide expectations in 3 critical areas. We're really focused on making our professional learning communities richer and more productive. We're really focused on student engagement. No longer will you be able to sit passively in a class. We've eliminated, I shouldn't say we've eliminated, we're working to eliminate sleeping in class. And it's been a project that all of us have been in classrooms giving kids a little attention, we'll say, to make sure that doesn't happen. And the main thing that we're trying to do is change the culture in our school district where our expectations are higher. Since we feel, with all due respect, I've sensed sometimes we feel sorry for kids because of the background that they come from. And as we heard so eloquently in our presentation earlier, there are a group of kids that because of trauma, abuse, or neglect, or some of the things that they've had in their lives, they do require a little bit more than just the concept of relationships. It needs to be a little focused intervention, and we've worked with our social services partners throughout this community, and really we're just trying to ask every employee in the Waco ISD to be responsible for changing the culture in our schools. And we believe we should take this personal and that we can accomplish all of our instructional goals. So I'd like to applaud our entire team. We've been all over this state. We talk to TEA daily. We're working on grants, and we're trying to be good stewards of what's being asked of the school district to be in compliance. And the best is yet to come for our school system. That includes our update. Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Any questions on that? All right. Last item is announcements. Mr. DeBeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow, the application period for our elementary magnet schools will open, and those applications will be available online at wacoisd.org/magnet-app. Both Hillcrest and Lake Air Montessori offer an incredibly unique and special educational experience, and we would encourage families who are interested in these programs to learn more about them, to look at the application, which will be open through January, and to reach out to the campuses to schedule a tour. Next week on Tuesday, December 5th at 6:30 in the Performing Arts Center at Waco High School, we'll hold our annual Outstanding Teacher Ceremony, which is an incredibly special event where we get to recognize outstanding teachers from each campus in the district who day in and day out are making a difference for their kids and who really exemplify that focus on raising expectations and increasing the quality of instruction and the success of students that Dr. Nelson is talking about. And then what I would just say is that for the next couple of weeks, virtually every night, there's an incredible fine arts performance in our district. You can find a complete listing of these performances on our website. And then throughout the holiday season, many of the performances will be recorded and will play on Waco ISD TV channel 17. And there's almost not a better way to get into the holiday spirit than attending one of these performances or tuning in on Waco ISD TV. And so we certainly invite all of you in our community to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeBeer. That concludes our announcements, Mr. President.
All right. Any other announcements from the dais? Then hearing no objection, we'll stand adjourned.